All right, folks. Sorry about that. We were just experiencing some technical delays, but everything is going on right now. It's Friday, September 5th, 2014, the first Friday of September. You know what that means, folks? It is time for the third season of
The Blitz Zone.
Hi, folks. I am your host, Eric Rosen, along with my co-host, my main man, tag team partner, co-pilot, and everything and more, Mr. Jamie the Sportsman Hickson.
It is so great getting a chance to co-host the show with you again. Two reasons. One, it's always great working with you. And two, football season's back.
That's right. Football is back, folks. The 2014 season got underway last night, but we'll get to that in a little bit. You know, the last time we were here about 7 months ago in February, the season ended with the trouncing of the Denver Broncos by the Seattle Seahawks 43-8.
And somehow that game was still able to break another ratings record. But that's beside the point. The point is that the Broncos really brought this upon themselves, playing so poorly. They did not do anything to stop the Seahawks. They didn't stop the run. Their secondary got shredded. And because of that, the Broncos wound up making some major changes to their defense, specifically in their secondary and on the line.
Jamie, just found that we're not even on.
Uh-oh.
It's in the bleachers. That's on.
What? Okay, somebody made a mistake here. Let's fix that first.
Sorry, folks. A little more technical delays. Sorry, folks, if I'm standing here a little silent, all that. Just, we are on right now.
Yep.
Wow, I'm so...
Well, that was a real
Now
awkward moment.
It says kids playing basketball.
Kids playing are they even looking at the same channel?
I think they are.
Ask what channel they're looking at.
All right, you know what? You take over from me for...
Well, in the meantime, while Eric's trying to sort out the technical difficulties that we have, we mentioned before that the Seahawks just made mincemeat out of that Bronco defense last year. The Broncos didn't do anything to stop the Seahawk running game, especially any of the sweeps to the left and right sides. And because of that, the Broncos wound up getting major changes done to their defense over the offseason. They reconstructed their secondary. They wound up getting DeMarcus Ware to sign up for the line. And there's a strong possibility that the Broncos might run the table in the AFC West once again. The AFC basically is down to 3 teams who you could say would easily be in contention for a Super Bowl spot. It's the Broncos, the Patriots, who I still think are very dangerous, and the Colts. I think this could be the time for the Colts to really make a run at this thing, especially with Andrew Luck still taking the snaps from center. Let's see if he can keep himself upright, because his sophomore year, he wound up taking more shots from opposing defenses than in his rookie season. And also, let's see him actually get some help from his running game, because the Colts got nothing from the backfield last season. But as long as Andrew Luck has T.Y. Hilton to work with, they're going to be in really good hands. They've got to do something about that running game. That's going to be critical. Now, as far as the rest of the AFC, it's basically take your choice right there. I still think Pittsburgh has a little bit left in the tank. I also think that Baltimore is going to be really, really dangerous this season. How are we doing now, Eric?
It's still saying in the bleachers basketball.
Really? Wow. On which channel?
37.
On Fios?
Yep.
You have Fios?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
You know what?
But we're on 1997, though.
Yeah, for Time Warner. All right.
Yeah.
You know what, folks? Sorry about all this stuff. Anyway, as we all know, with the off season, comes a lot of things that are taking place. We had the free agency period. We saw a lot of players move from different teams, like Jairus Bird went to New Orleans. We saw, things like that. We saw Emmanuel Sanders going to Denver. DeMarcus Ware, Aqib Talib, and T.J. Ward are now in Denver.
Ware by himself really improved that line. Aqib Talib, I'm not necessarily a fan of. I think he can be really picked on when he's having a really bad day.
Yeah, and again, sorry for all my Verizon people if you're not able to see this. Anyway, now, with all the moves that have taken place, a lot of big free agent moves, including Eric Decker now with the New York Jets. They needed that to happen. And Michael Johnson how about Tampa Bay getting Michael Johnson, Ron Werner? A lot of big free agent moves. And then the NFL draft. We had Mr. Johnny Manziel from Texas A&M drafted by the Cleveland Browns at the 22nd pick. We had the number 1 overall pick, Jadeveon Clowney, selected by the Houston Texans. And then, with one of the big moves of the night, how about Teddy Bridgewater being selected by Minnesota?
That was such a huge pick for the Vikings, considering they've had quarterback problems since Brett Favre retired a couple of years ago. But getting him was critical. I don't know why they're making Matt Castle the starter. Matt Castle has shown to be nothing but garbage ever since he left New England. They've got to give Bridgewater a shot here, but they felt like they wanted to go with the better guy in the preseason, but as we all know, preseason means nothing in the real games.
Definitely. And how about Blake Bortles going from Central Florida to a few hours down the road to Jacksonville?
Finally, the Jaguars have a franchise quarterback. First time that's happened since Mark Brunell was traded away. Bortles is going to be a really interesting player for the Jaguars to have.
My intriguing guy, though, Brandon Cooks out of Oregon State, being a part of that receiving corps for the Saints. Now, tabling all that, a lot of events took place. We lost some big pioneers along the way, like Malcolm Glazer, the longtime owner of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. William Clay Ford, who was the longtime owner, the second longest tenured owner since '63 with the Detroit Lions, and since 1960. If you heard the Buffalo Bills, there was one guy that comes to mind, the late Mr. Ralph Wilson, and his name bears the stadium that is in Orchard Park, New York.
Yeah,
and he passed away.
Ever since he passed away, the Bills have been in real limbo. There's been talk about who's going to be buying the franchise. There was a little bit of a rumor involving Donald Trump, but even he admitted that he really was not in the running. There was also the hot rumor involving John Bon Jovi, who has some experience running the Philadelphia Soul in the Arena League. But there's also been talk that the Bills are going to be making their way out of Orchard Park and going to Toronto, which is, I think, a stupid idea, considering Toronto already has the Argonauts in the CFL. But if Bon Jovi can stay true to his word that the Bills would be staying in Buffalo, then maybe they'll have a little bit of a chance. But I've already heard that a deal pretty much fell by the wayside a couple of months ago. And I'm also hearing maybe even Jim Kelly, who just beat cancer, praise God, might be involved in another group that could take the Bills and keep them in Buffalo.
Well, whoever takes over the Bills, just keep the Bills where they should be in Orchard Park, New York, and not take them out. This is an organization since '99 that hasn't made the postseason. They've dealt with enough drama as it is on the field. They don't need to deal with it off the field. And not only that, Doug Whaley, too, wouldn't know what his future is going to be, the GM, or Doug Maroney, the head coach. So there's a lot. And how about the cheerleaders, the the Jills suing the organization too.
Yeah.
The alleged jiggle test that was going down, the bad pay, and then they're not the only team that's having cheerleader issues.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Raiderettes that just settled on a lawsuit yesterday. You got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers organization, the flight crew, and the Bengals of the Cincinnati Bengals. So you got things like that going on. We've heard of the suspensions that have gone down. Robert Mathis suspended first 4 games.
And the Colts owner, Jim Irsay, wound up getting 6 games after being busted for drug possession not too long ago. And just recently, even one Wes Welker wound up getting banned 4 games after being caught with amphetamines. And he still, to this moment, is saying he did nothing wrong.
How about Matt Prater, too, as well, who's going to join him in suspension town? And this takes away one of their slot receiver. But you know what? You still got Emmanuel Sanders. You still have Demaryius Thomas and Julius Thomas. Monte Ball to work with. So he does have some weapons to work with in this offense. So and Cody Latimer, we're going to see probably plenty of in these 4 games, the guy they got out of Indiana. Now, how about the San Francisco 49ers? We want to talk about a team that's in a state of flux recently. Navarro Bowman out for half the year, and a new penalty that bears his name. Any loose ball plays that are rendered dead have to be reviewed.
There's also the issue involving Alden Smith,
ACL. Oh, yeah.
who wound up getting arrested for domestic violence.
Actually, it was Ray McDonald who got arrested.
Correction, Ray McDonald, yeah.
And now with the new NFL policy, ever since Ray Rice suspended 2 games, by the way, was called into question. They now have a new policy. First-time offenders with domestic violence, that's 6 games. Second time, you're ousted, lifetime banishment. Now, Ray McDonald, we don't know what's going to happen with him. And then you talk about another thing that's going on with the you got Navarro Bowman. We talked about Alden Smith, Ray McDonald. It's really, this is...
And there was also some history that was made because Michael Sam wound up being drafted by the Rams, the first openly gay player drafted into the NFL. Unfortunately, he wound up being one of the final cuts once the preseason ended. He actually had a pretty decent preseason. 4 sacks in 3 games, and also I think he made 11 tackles. He had a very good preseason. But unfortunately, he could not survive the last 5 cuts. He went through waivers, and as it turns out, the NFL called teams on his behalf to try and pitch him as a potential practice squad player. And as it turns out, the Cowboys wound up signing him, and they put Michael Sam on their practice squad. Makes sense, since Michael Sam was born and raised in Texas, so he'll be playing closer to home. This is no surprise what the NFL did, because when you think about it, they also have the Rooney Rule, in which they basically contact teams on black coaches' behalves to try and sell them as potential head coaches.
And with all that, at least the Cowboys, though, are giving him an opportunity. And believe me, this is a team that needs help. DeMarcus Ware is gone. He's in Denver because of cap issues. Jason Hatcher's in Washington. The same reason, cap issues. DeMarcus Lawrence, who they drafted, out for half the season with a leg injury. Now, Michael Sam could be brought up during the season. I hope to see him play, considering this is a defense they gave up 413 yards a game, the 3rd worst mark ever in NFL history. They could certainly use Michael Sam, and his jersey, if put on the team, would be the highest selling jersey in NFL history, if you ask me.
Yeah, the Rams really missed out on keeping this kid. The only reason why the Rams even decided to release Michael Sam was because they wanted to have less on their depth chart at linebacker.
Well, it's not. They have such depth at the defensive line. As you know, they got Chris Long, Michael Brockers, Robert Quinn. They got and James Laurinaitis in that defensive front 7. They have so many players that, in their mind, it was just too much to have Michael Sam on the squad. That's why they let him go. But a lot of teams were afraid of the publicity. Their excuse for not wanting time is the publicity brings with him. But then again, we've seen teams that have hired guys who have had checkered past.
Yeah.
And yet they've never... batted an eye about that, or they never had a problem with that. But yet, because Michael Sam was the first openly gay player, there was somehow an issue with publicity. Well, in the end,
you know what this will bring? Good publicity. Because Michael Sam happens to be a good player.
Yeah.
He's good enough to make somebody's practice squad. He was good enough to be drafted into the NFL. He should be good enough to play at least a little bit on defense.
he was the co-defensive SEC Player of the Year. I'm talking about the SEC, the number one division in all of college football, folks. Missouri, by the way, which brought us Sheldon Richardson.
Yeah.
For the New York Jets. So I'm
Yep.
just saying,
There might have been one thing that may have worked against Sam, though, and this is definitely football related. Michael Sam played only in a 4-3 defense at Missouri. He would look like a fish out of water if he were to play in a 3-4.
well, you put him at outside linebacker. That's the same thing that they're doing.
That's the thing. Michael Sam's a middle linebacker. He can't play on the outside. He has to be in the middle.
Well, you can give him a shot at least at the outside position, or put him.
He's
in
got
the,
a lot of learning to do in the event that he were to be converted into an outside pass rusher.
But either way, the guy had 11 tackles in the preseason. He was a bona fide. I thought he was going to get. But anyway, getting off. Congratulations to Michael Sam. But how about some of the other things that have taken place? Contracts. Colin Kaepernick, new deal with San Francisco for 6 years. J.J. Watt got a new rich $51 million guaranteed contract with the Texans. Tyron Smith is going to be on the Dallas offensive line for a decade to come. Andy Dalton got a new deal as well with the Cincinnati Bengals. 3 straight years in the postseason, unfortunately not winning in the wild card round. Patrick Peterson will be with the Cardinals for the next 5 years. Alex Smith got a new 4-year contract with the Chiefs. Joe Hayden from my Florida Gators got a new deal with the Cleveland Browns.
Yep.
And the baddest man in cornerback business, I'm talking about Mr. Richard Sherman, got a new 4-year contract.
Speaking of Richard Sherman, did you see his new commercial for Campbell's Chunky Soup?
Oh, I like it.
Oh, wow. He has shown not only can he talk the talk and walk the walk, he's got some sense of humor.
Oh, and he can dance. Remember last year when he was with the cheerleaders on the sideline?
Yep.
I say this guy's going to be on Dance with the Stars someday.
Possibly. He'd have to probably wait until retirement, though.
Or I've seen players even when they were retired. Remember Jacoby Jones?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the only.
And also Jason Taylor.
That's right. We've seen players during the season, but Richard Sherman with that new deal. Cornerbacks are getting paid. Mm-hmm. They're going to become just as expensive, if not more, than the quarterbacks.
Because just as much as the quarterback is a really important position, the prime position in that sport, cornerback, safety, linebacker, defensive line, you always have to win championships with defense. So Richard Sherman, obviously the unofficial captain of that defense, he should be the everyday captain if you ask me. He really earned his money this time.
Yeah, so congratulations to him.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of which, with all the preseason and everything going down, now we're in the regular season. Last night, first game of the year, of course.
Last night, the first game of the year was Packers-Seahawks, the two teams whose little banners Eric is holding right now. Basically, the Seahawks picked up where they left off at MetLife Stadium 7 months ago. What can we say about Russell Wilson that has not already been said? Whatever mistakes that he makes, he always gets a chance to correct them. I mean, just last night, he had a couple of issues where he was a little bit unsettled in the pocket. But what does he do? He makes plays with his feet. He throws on the run. He carries the ball on the run to try and get positive yardage. Whatever is not there, he's going to make something out of it still. And there's also the issue of the running game. The running game,
beast mode.
Yeah, beast mode. Marshawn Lynch, no eye-popping numbers this time, but he still did exactly what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, he really over 110 yards. He averaged 5.5 yards a carry last night. 2 big touchdowns, including the first one. 3 tackles missed him. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants any part of Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah,
they don't call him beast mode for nothing and all that.
I like to refer to him as Mr. Skittles because Skittles are his favorite candy.
In fact, I was eating Skittles twice when he scored. For the And every time he scores, I'm going to eat Skittles this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Skittles.
Yeah.
In fact, they have a Beast Mode burger. You get a burger with a bag of Skittles at Century Link Field. But getting back to the game itself, Bobby Wagner, great on their defense, tied a career high with 14 tackles last night.
Mm-hmm.
Ricardo Lockett got one of the 2 touchdowns from Mr. Russell Wilson last night in that second quarter. And what
the secondary, the Seahawks secondary, pretty much showed why they have the best secondary in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers, say this about him. He's got unbelievable skill. Did you see the throw that he made running to his right in the early in the fourth quarter last night? I mean, granted, he batted it down, but he's got a powerful, powerful arm on him.
Oh, without a doubt.
Last night, unfortunately, things just did not go well for the Packers at all. They had the same problem that the Broncos did in the Super Bowl last year. They just could not stop the run, specifically going to the left side.
Yeah, I know one thing about playing the Seahawks defense, you do not want to throw towards Richard Sherman. A lot of quarterbacks are going to avoid the right side of the field because they know the guy had a league-high 8 interceptions last year.
And it's not like the Seahawks don't have any receivers. I mean, Nate Burleson has become...
he's on the team.
Well, excuse me about that.
Percy Harvin.
Percy Harvin, the former Viking. Percy Harvin has, when he's got 2 good legs, he can be a really, really dangerous receiver. I don't know why these guys are playing these receivers so far off the line instead of being on the line and trying to jam them.
I know. It's amazing. The guy, he plays as a receiver. He can run out of the backfield. He can do kick returns. He can do everything but wash my car. No, but but Percy Harvin can do everything and then some. That's why they got him. He's a very versatile player. He was when he was with Minnesota. And he's doing the same here with the Seattle Seahawks. And by the way, thank you for the 16 points in my NFL Fantasy League.
Yeah.
You know.
And as it turns out, the final margin was 13 points. But even then, the Packers really, really had their problems. I would say from the second quarter on was where things really started, turning for the Seahawks.
Yeah, this especially at the last touchdown of the game. The last play, in fact, that took 7 minutes on 13 plays, which ended with Derek Coleman's 15-yard TD on a 4th down play with 2:31 to go. It pretty much signified the end was near for the Packers. I thought there was going to be an upset. As I said on my Facebook account last night, I thought maybe that Green Bay could go into the 12th man and get a victory, but it really has shown in the last 2 years it is tough to win in Century Link.
Yep. The only team that could probably give the Seahawks a little bit of trouble might be Arizona, because Arizona showed that they can run the football against the Seahawk defense because they have the running game to try and shred the Seahawks. That is probably what it's going to take to beat the Seahawks. Keep the ball on the ground, pound it with whatever star running back a team might have. But still, the Seahawks are head and shoulders above everybody else in the NFC.
Well, they tried that last night in Green Bay with Eddie Lacy, but he wasn't getting anywhere.
Yep.
That's the thing. You can't running the ball against them is difficult. Throwing the ball, as you saw last night,
throwing the ball is impossible, especially with that secondary.
You got Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, the best safety tandem in the NFL. And as I mentioned, Richard Sherman the rights. Byron Maxwell got in on the action on a deflected pass off of Jordy Nelson. Jordy Nelson was probably the most productive receiver. And then Randall Cobb got the only touchdown in the game. This was a mismatch to begin with. It was bad for Green Bay. And now, they lose their offensive lineman, Brian Bulaga, for who knows how long. He got an MCL tear. And Eddie Lacy got concussed in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
So James Starks is probably going to have to be your starting back going to the Jets game next week.
Yeah.
This is really bad. And by the way, the guy that replaced Bulaga, was terrible. He let a few sacks. He let one sack go by him in this game. He was also responsible for that fumble recovery.
Yeah.
So right there, Green Bay might be in a little bit of trouble. Depending on how long Bulaga's out.
Quite possibly, but
and Lacy.
As they always say, it's just the first game of the season. Let's see exactly what happens in week 2 and beyond.
Well, now that we talked about Seattle and Green Bay, congratulations, Seahawks, by the way, on having your banner raised from Super Bowl 48. Now let's go back to our favorite segment called In the Neighborhood. And starting off with the New York Giants going to Detroit Rock City Monday night against Megatron and the Lions.
I'm going to tell you right now, this has the potential to get really, really ugly. One matchup is going to decide this game. Calvin Johnson versus the entire Giants secondary.
Well,
this is going to get ugly. Let me tell you right now, the Giants still did nothing about that secondary. Sorry, but Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie can only do so much. And what about the offense? Eli Manning did nothing to try and take care of the football last year. His offensive line sucked. The only improvements that I saw the Giants make, one was in the running game. Rashad Jennings and Andre Williams are going to be really, really dangerous. Expect them to share the number of carries. They still didn't do anything about a tight end. They still didn't get another receiver to play alongside Victor Cruz. And that offensive line is looking really, really young. And what about the defense? Granted, they had to make some changes on that line because they were getting a little bit older. But let me tell you,
they lost Linval Joseph to
Linval Joseph and Justin Tuck gone.
Well, you know what? I have to disagree with you on that secondary part. Walter Thurman was a part of that 2013 Seattle Seahawks team that won the Super Bowl. He was one of the big important pieces, and 3 interceptions last year for Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie. You know, believe me, the Jets wanted to get him. That's how much they liked him. Granted, it was another Cromartie, but still, you know, I think Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie is going to help that secondary improve. As for the running game, yeah,
I just don't see it. Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie all by himself, and
well, you got
maybe
Prince Amukamara, you got Antrel Roll.
That's when he's healthy. Prince Amukamara has been nothing but a medical liability for that team ever since he got drafted. And when he has been playing, he's not impressed me at all.
But the thing I will agree with you, if this was any other team, that secondary will do well. But considering who you mentioned earlier, the 6'9" Megatron,
he can probably catch 10 passes going 1-on-4. That's how dangerous he is.
And not only that, look how dangerous they got. They got a new head coach, of course. You know, Jim Colwell's gone. He's now with Buffalo as their DC, their defensive coordinator. They got Jim Colwell, a guy who's won 2 AFC South titles with Indianapolis, who helped Joe Flacco en route to their Super Bowl 47 victory against San Francisco. A guy who is really going to be a huge important piece in helping Matthew Stafford, who's had 4,500 plus yards in the last 3 years, get even better than what he was last year. And the weapons they surround him with. They got Reggie Bush and Joique Bell, who both had over 1,500 all-purpose yards last year. One of the best running back tandems in the league.
Yeah.
And then you look at the receivers. Eric Ebron, they drafted out of Detroit, out of North Carolina, the tight end. And Golden Tate, they signed in free agency. I'm going with Detroit Rock City to rock.
I like Detroit, too. I think they win this game by at least 14 points. The Giants got way too many questions. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't see the Giants winning more than 6 games this year.
And I just don't know if Odell's even playing this game.
He's not.
The new West Coast system is still taking time for the Giants to learn.
And they've got a new offensive coordinator, the Giants do. And Eli Manning is still, even though he's not admitting it, he's saying that it's a process. He's still having trouble picking up that new offense.
I know. I think this is definitely Detroit's game to win at home.
If the Giants want to win this game, pound the ball with Rashad Jennings and Andre Williams, and let's see that
Victor Cruz.
New and improved offensive line actually create some holes for them. And while they're at it, protect the damn quarterback, please.
Yeah, he was sacked at career high 42 times. He threw
and also threw 27 interceptions last year?
Yeah, the most in the league.
Wow.
Now let's go to the other game in the neighborhood at MetLife Stadium. The Oakland Raiders, the black and silver, visiting the New York Jets. When you think of this rivalry, I think of the AFL title game between
the Jets and the Raiders, 1968.
The old stadium.
A game played at the old Shea Stadium, a